Okay, continuing along with Report from Iron Mountain. We are in section 5 and this is part 2. But negatively phrased public recognitions of the importance of war to the general economy abound. The most familiar example is the effect of peace threats on the stock market. Example, Wall Street was shaken yesterday by news of an apparent peace feeler from North Vietnam, but swiftly recovered its composure after about an hour of sometimes indiscriminate selling. Savings banks solicit deposits with similar cautionary slogans. Example, if peace breaks out, will you be ready for it? A more subtle case in point was the recent refusal of the Department of Defense to permit the Western German government to substitute non-military goods for unwanted armaments in its purchase commitments from the United States. The decisive consideration was that the German purchases should not affect the general non-military economy. Other incidental examples are to be found in the pressures brought to bear on the department when it announces plans to close down an obsolete factory as a wasteful form of waste, and in the usual coordination of stepped-up military activities, as in Vietnam in 1965, with dangerously rising unemployment rates. Although we do not imply that a substitute for war in the economy cannot be devised, no combination of techniques for controlling employment, production, and consumption has yet been tested that can remotely compare to it in effectiveness. It is and has been the essential economic stabilizer of modern economies. Political. The political functions of war have been up to now even more critical to social stability. It is not surprising, nevertheless, that discussions of economic conversion for peace tend to fall silent on the matter of political implementation, and that disarmament scenarios, often sophisticated in their weighing of international political factors, tend to disregard the political functions of the war system within individual societies. These functions are essentially organized. First of all, the existence of a society as a political nation requires, as part of its definition, an attitude of relationship toward other nations. This is what we usually call a foreign policy. But a nation's foreign policy can have no substance if it lacks the means of enforcing its attitude toward other nations. It can do this in a credible manner only if it implies the threat of maximum political organization for this purpose, which is to say that it is organized to some degree for war. War, then, as we have defined it, to include all national activities that recognize the possibility of armed conflict, is itself the defining element of any nation's existence vis-a-vis any other nation. Since it is historically axiomatic that the existence of any form of weaponry ensures its use, we have used the word peace as virtually synonymous with disarmament. By the same token, war is virtually synonymous with nationhood. The elimination of war implies the inevitable elimination of national sovereignty and the traditional nation-state. The war system not only has been essential to the existence of nations as independent political entities, but has been equally indispensable to their stable internal political structure. Without it, no government has ever been able to obtain acquiescence in its legitimacy or right to rule its society. The possibility of war provides the sense of external necessity without which no government can long remain in power. The historical record reveals one instance after another where the failure of a regime to maintain the credibility of a war threat led to its dissolution by the forces of private interest, of reactions to social injustice, or of other disintegrative elements. the organization of a society for the possibility of war is its principal political stabilizer. It is ironic that this primary function of war has been generally recognized by historians only where it has been expressly acknowledged, in the pirate societies of great conquerors. The basic authority of a modern state over its people resides in its war powers. There is, in fact, good reason to believe that codified law had its origins in the rules of conduct established by military victors for dealing with the defeated enemy, which were later adapted to apply to all subject populations. On a day-to-day basis, it is represented by the institution of police armed organizations charged expressly with dealing with internal enemies in a military manner. Like the conventional external military, the police are also substantially exempt from many civilian legal restraints on their social behavior. In some countries, the artificial distinction between police and other military forces does not exist. On the long-term basis, a government's emergency war powers inherent in the structure of even the most libertarian of nations define the most significant aspect of the relation between state and citizen. In advanced modern democratic societies, the war system has provided political leaders with another political economic function of increasing importance. It has served as the last great safeguard against the elimination of necessary social classes. As economic productivity increases to a level further and further above that of minimum subsistence, it becomes more and more difficult for a society to maintain distribution patterns ensuring the existence of hewers of wood and drawers of water. The further progress of automation can be expected to differentiate still more sharply between superior workers and what Ricardo called menials, while simultaneously aggravating the problem of maintaining an unskilled labor supply. The arbitrary nature of war expenditures and other military activities make them ideally suited to control these essential class relationships. Obviously, if the war system were to be discarded, new political machinery would be needed at once to serve this vital function. Until it is developed, the continuance of the war system must be assured, if for no other reason, among others, than to serve whatever quality and degree of poverty a society requires as an incentive, as well as to maintain the stability of its internal organization of power. And we'll stop it right here, and we'll pick up again with Iron Mountain, section 5, and it will be video number 3. So hope you're following along.